Hi, my name is Alexandria Machi, and today I'll be talking about Barbara Casadei for my biological role model assignment. Firstly, I'll be talking about Barbara Casadei's involvement in science and schooling. Her undergrad was in the University of Pavia in Italy, but there she applied for a scholarship to travel abroad for 6 months, where she eventually ended up at Oxford after writing to Dr. Peter Slate and asking if she could join in and train in the Department of Cardiovascular Medicine. And from there, she never came back to Italy and stayed in Oxford. Now, transitioning to the obstacles and how she overcame them, there was an interview between Cassidy and Rutherford in 2020 where she described her whole entire journey as tentative and ununiformed. She was the first of her family to go to the university, so she didn't really have any idea what was going on. And she didn't travel and didn't have a clear vision of her future. But she overcame it by becoming more interested and involved in the heart and taking action to be able to help and make a difference in her future. Here are just a few of Barbara Cassaday's achievements thus far. One of the more present and I think significant ones was being awarded the Lucian Award for Outstanding Research in the field of circulatory diseases in recognition of her pioneering work into atrial fibrillation. Some of Cassaday's hobbies include the cardiovascular system and women empowerment. She constantly promotes this through her teachings and through her posts both inside and out of work. She also really likes jazz, and currently there are some jazz songs that she likes that are playing in the background. Some things that I really admire about Cassidy is the amount of effort and time she takes into trying to motivate her students and everyone around her to be successful, as well as promote careers of women in science. I can identify with her in the fact that I'm very interested in cardiovascular medicine, and I believe that I'm a very ambitious and action oriented person as well as her. An example of her ambition was mentioned in an interview between Cassidy and Rutherford in 2020, and this is when the panel thought that coming from her clinical research, she was too ambitious to pursue difficult experiments and take her work further too quickly, which I really admire about her for constantly wanting to take action and create a difference. The field of expertise that Casadei is in is the cardiovascular system, and more specifically, she understands the cellular triggers and substances of common cardiovascular disease, like heart failure and atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation happens to 35 to 50% of the patients after heart surgery, and this is the most common type of arrhythmia, which is a regular heartbeat. And this occurs when electrical impulses fire off from different places in the top chambers of the heart in a disorganized way. Cassaday's most recent article in October 2023's General Results suggested that age and different disease processes approximated by these three biomolecules contribute to atrial fibrillation in patients. The results of the deep neural network analysis suggested there may be different disease processes that can contribute to AF. Now, the summary of the experiments performed was that they used a high precision platform to quantify 12 biomarkers in 1,485 consecutive patients with cardiovascular conditions. They were split into two cohorts, and the logistic regression and deep neural network approach were used to identify the biomarkers associated with prevalent atrial fibrillation. All right, now looking at this graph on the y-axis, these are our biomarkers, and on the x-axis, it's indicating whether this is the sinus rhythm or atrial fibrillation of the heartbeat. Now, there's two different groups which are shown by the two different color blues. There's a darker blue, which is the discovery cohort, and the light blue, which is the validation cohort, which is the two different groups that were separated. And as you can tell, the BMP10, the ANGPT2, the ESM1, FGF23, and a few others are towards the atrial fibrillation line, which can indicate that these can cause atrial fibrillation. Now, as you can see here, I've listed off the techniques that were used to generate this figure, and the main conclusion of this is that the three circulating biomolecules, BMP10 and GPT2 and FGF23, are significant risk factors for atrial fibrillation. So, what she's uncovered thus far was the understanding of the mechanism of atrial fibrillation and identifying potential targets for treatment, as well as being able to refine the predictions of atrial fibrillation complications and the characteristics of blood flow in the left atrium by magnetic resonance imaging based on some of her articles. Now, the next steps is trying to move these investigations from animals and patients in trials into hospitals to help take action and be able to prevent atrial fibrillation from happening to more patients than needed. This is a quote in one of Casadei's articles in 2023 that I found just really resonated with me, and I'd like to use this quote moving forward in my life. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation and loved learning about Casadei as much as I did. Thank you so much for listening.